So, this video we're going to have a look at control of delegated legislation, first of all controlled by Parliament. There are a variety of ways that Parliament can control the way that delegated legislation is made. First of all, we have the Parent Act. So we know that every piece of delegated legislation requires a Parent Act, and this can limit the amount of power that is given away at this stage. It says who has to be consulted and the way that the delegated legislation is made. A statutory instrument may be subject to affirmative resolution procedure, and this means that it won't come into force unless Parliament specifically approves it. This is quite unusual. More likely, the statutory instrument will be subject to negative resolution procedure, where it will automatically become law unless it is rejected by Parliament within 40 days. So it either has to go through affirmative or negative resolution, and negative is more common. Each piece of delegated legislation has to go to the Scrutiny Committee, full name, Joint Select Committee on Statutory Instruments. This body reviews all statutory instruments and refers them to Parliament if they go beyond the powers given, or if they use the power given in an unusual or unexpected way. So they can only refer back to Parliament, they can't change it or amend it themselves. And ministers can be questioned by the House of Commons at any time by any MP about the work proposed. So MPs have to understand that they may be expected to account for the work that they are doing. There are also ways that the courts can control delegated legislation. So when we look at control by Parliament, this is before the delegated legislation has actually come into force, before it's been passed. Control by courts is after it already exists, if it needs to be controlled at that point. So just remember that we are looking at control by courts, is also known as judicial control, judicial precedent, courts, judges. Question might ask you control by courts, it might also ask you judicial control. It's all the same thing. So, we know that delegated legislation can be challenged in the High Court Queen's Bench Division, and this hearing is known as judicial review. And delegated legislation can be declared ultra vires, which is Latin for beyond the powers. And the effect of this is to make it void or ineffective. So it will be taken out of effect. And there are three types of things that it can be declared in judicial review. The first one is procedural ultra vires. So the minister hasn't followed the procedure set out in the Parent Act. And this can be seen in the Aylesbury mushroom case, whereby the minister was told that to create a training board for farmers, they had to consult with a variety of different people, including mushroom farmers. They missed out the mushroom farmers, and therefore this was procedurally ultra vires, and therefore void. There is also substantive ultra vires, which mean that the power given has been exceeded in some way. So the power given by the Parent Act has been exceeded. This can be seen in the Fulham Corporation case. The person delegated the power was given the power to create a shared, free washing facility. What they actually made was a paid-for laundrette. This was beyond the powers. And finally, unreasonableness. This means that the delegated legislation made is so unjust or illogical that no reasonable body could have made it. This is seen in Strickland and Haysborough Council, whereby the power given was used to ban swearing in public as well as in private. It was unreasonable to try and ban swearing in private because it was unenforceable. And so it seems like the courts can do a lot because they can void a piece of legislation and make it completely inactive and take it away. However, what we need to remember is it takes an educated person to know how to take it to court, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of money. So maybe it's not as much of a control as you would have thought. So control by Parliament is before it's passed, control by courts is after it's passed.